I think everybody in journalism, certainly every woman, but young people, people of color, has moments pretty frequently when you think, okay, wait a minute, what I'm going to say is not going to be what everybody else thinks. And journalism is a pretty conservative, I don't mean politically conservative, I mean a sort of change averse, a pretty conservative environment. People in journalism generally know what they think news judgment is. And if you're getting ready to say something that is not in accord with the conventional news judgment, you always ask yourself, should I say this or not? Certainly at the New York Times, I was the youngest member of the board. I was one of the few women on the board. I was certainly the only mother of children at home. And you know, I was coming from Iowa to New York, and I often felt that I wanted to say, well, you know, all those people out there in the rest of America are not having the same experience that everyone here on Manhattan Island is having. And I think it was right to wonder, but yes, I self-censored a whole lot then. I'd say the time in my life when I literally was censored was later, after I had a great deal more power and authority. I'd already served as an editor, and I was writing an early blog for the Poynter Institute. Long story here, but we had done a remarkable piece of journalism at the Des Moines Register in which a woman who had been raped wanted to tell her own story, wanted her photo and her name used. This was back in 1989, just didn't happen. So it was revolutionary. It got on the front page of the Sunday New York Times. It won a Pulitzer Prize Gold Medal for Public Service. So it was a big story. Anyway, I felt very strongly that this question of anonymity, while we could go on forever about the very legitimate, very powerful reasons why editors felt they wanted to protect women who have been raped, the fact is it contributes to the anonymity, I think, to the prolongation of the the stigmatization, but it also helps keep the crime in the dark. Anyway, I felt strongly about this. Kobe Bryant, people may know, remember or not remember this, Kobe Bryant, a woman brought charges of rape against him. Her name was all over the internet, for good or for ill it was, and I used it in a column that I wrote for the Poynter Institute, my argument being we must have both people named. It is not fair, we cannot make the judgment, it hasn't gone to the courts, we don't know who's guilty or not guilty. This plays against women in many ways. The only people who did know her name were the people searching it on the web and saying horrible, misogynistic, vitriolic stuff. So they wouldn't let me use it. So I quit the column. So that was a form of censorship many people would agree with, and I respect that. But yeah, in your life you're always going to find some things you can't say. And I mean, I know we'll talk about this, but I think one of the most interesting questions you all are posing, and I think one of the most interesting questions confronting young women is always going to be, when is it right for me to speak out? Because I know there will be occasions, many, many in your life, where you'll think, wait, I'm bringing something different to the table. And I need to be who I am, and the people need to know I think this. And I really believe your default position ought to be that. You ought to believe you need to make the contribution. But you can't always make it, people can't always hear it, and thinking carefully about how you make it, all of this is really important stuff.